Hi, this is Todd KERNS from Slash featuring Myles Kennedy and the Conspirators, and you're listening to Sonic Perspectives.
Todd, thank you so much for joining us today. It's truly an honor to speak with you. Big fan of yours, and I'm surprised we haven't spoken in a while.
I agree. I am excited to hang.
So I'm Robert Cavuoto, and today we're speaking with Todd Kearns of Slash and the Conspirators for their record store album release live at Studio 60 on June 18th, as well as a whole bunch of other things that you're working on. You got coffee, you have your solo band, so hopefully we hit all of those things. So again, thank you for your time today, and I look forward to talking with you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah, so on 18th, the independent record stores are going to be releasing live at Studio 60, which is the audio recording of the full Studio 4 album, which I happen to have right here.
Great, great.
I got it at the concert.
That's a signed one, yeah.
Yeah, I got it from Slash, right, at the
Perfect.
merch. So you did this full streaming event, and then you decided to record it. Tell me a little bit about the process for that.
Well, it was, the whole process of making that record was such a bizarre experience, what with the lockdown and the whole thing. I mean, the record was made in Nashville. What was it? 5 out of 6 of us that came out, tested positive at a certain point. So it was a very bizarre experience. And then, fast forward to the record coming out, and then we decided to, try and find unique ways to promote the thing or just to kind of celebrate the release. We set up at a place called Studio 60 in Los Angeles and just filmed us playing the record, which was bizarre too, because, although we'd recorded the record, it was recorded probably 6 to 8 months before we ever, kind of got back to, because there was a lot of like, well, let's just get ahead of this. There's a window of time we can go in and make this and then see what happens. So then you're kind of completely readdressing the playing of these songs that you need to kind of readdress and kind of relearn and all that kind of stuff. So we dove in and played them live right there in front of, which is kind of an interesting thing, because this record store release of Live at Studio 60 is but the album itself is very live. Like, we recorded it pretty live. So now you're getting a even more live version of the record. And then a few other, we just kind of played a few songs from our catalog, that World on Fire and stuff like that, that we felt pretty excited about. So,
no, I loved it. I watched the streaming a couple of times. It was really great. You guys were very, very tight. Did it take a lot of rehearsal to get it down, all those songs down?
Not really. I mean, the weird thing about our band is that, Slash he likes to rehearse. I think he also just likes to play. So I think the idea of just getting together and knocking it around is fun for him. But he's also very, he likes to get past the thinking mode where it just becomes sort of muscle memory. Right. And that takes a certain degree of just kind of, really kind of focusing and really kind of playing it over and over and over again. But we didn't really kill ourselves to get that. I think, like anything else, you just kind of do your homework at home, show up prepared, and run through it as many times as you can. I think we did a few days and then just decided, let's go in and do it. And most of it was first takes. I think we did a second take of Fall Back to Earth. But
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, most of it was pretty, in the moment. And I have to admit, I was kind of like, well, because the whole selling point of it is like, look, we're going to do it. We're going to film it. If you screw it up, you can always do it again. Yeah. So then you kind of creates a safety net of like, well, okay, well, if we don't pull it off, then we just do it again. So, and that only happened once, and that was that song, Fall Back to Earth. Because I was, again.
Do you hear any mistakes?
Pardon me?
Do you hear any mistakes in it?
Not really. The weird thing for me was that although the record was was recorded pretty much live, a lot of things like harmony, vocals, and stuff like that are all done after the fact. But then it falls on me to be kind of like, okay, well, I didn't play and sing this at the same time. So there's a whole like kind of, okay, well, you don't really think about what you're playing versus what you're singing. And oftentimes they're not necessarily, it takes you to split your brain in half. This is the singing and this is the playing. And I'm actually always been pretty proud of the fact that I can usually pull that off pretty well, but it does require some preparation. And I just sort of had to kind of get really on that. And so some of the biggest challenge for me was just kind of like, oh yeah, I'm not just going to be playing these songs. I have to kind of accompany Myles during all this as well, vocally.
No, they were great. Studio 60s it looked more like a warehouse than a typical studio, what I was thinking of. Is it a warehouse or is it a studio?
It's a warehouse studio. I think it's when they say Studio 60, I think it's more of a film studio type.
Oh, okay.
It certainly didn't seem like a recording studio. There was nothing set up in that idea. I think it's more of a part of some sort of probably for filming downtown Los Angeles kind of
Well, that makes more sense to me now.
yeah, which Los Angeles is, all these sort of nondescript buildings, or like there's things going on in there that we just don't know as we're driving by. But I assume that's what it was. It's funny that you bring that up because I never even really thought of that until just now.
I always think of recording studio. I wasn't thinking
exactly
studio, but yeah, no, that's perfect. Did you find better ways to do these songs this time around, and simpler ways to play the parts? So I'm sure there was a lot of work that went into the original recording, and not necessarily, hey, listen, I could do this better, I could do this easier, I could do this. Sounds great.
Yeah, you do find more economical ways to play them, but I think the weirdest thing was because we had recorded it pretty live, and we didn't do a whole lot of that's the other thing about Slash, is he loves to do pre-production. Like, he wants to go in and be prepared. Yeah. But Dave Cobb, the producer, was sort of like, don't overdo it. Let's make sure there's some room to, bring all the ingredients to the kitchen, and then we'll sort of see what we're going to make, kind of thing. So in reality, as we were recording those songs for the initial album oftentimes we were recording the second or third time we'd ever played the song ever. So sometimes you kind of almost felt like your parts were kind of mildly undercooked. Like, you kind of hadn't really had time to kind of think, well, I should do this here or that there. It was kind of like, boom, we're going. Yeah. And which is, I think, part of the fun of that sort of capturing things in the moment. So when you say from that to say Studio 60, I think certainly I have to adjust certain things when I'm singing sometimes. So sometimes it isn't necessarily simplified as much as it is just kind of more like, it makes sense to do this here and that there, just to kind of accommodate how I'm singing it. As the tours go on, and after you're playing a song, 3 months into a tour, you're thinking to yourself, oh, I should do this here, which would be something that you would be thinking in pre-production, like, oh, okay, now press the record button. You're like, no, the record button was pressed a year and a half ago. So now whatever you're doing is just for yourself and for the audience, But I think that's part of the fun, is like when you listen to Zeppelin live or The Who or any of those bands, and you're hearing versions of the live versions of the songs kind of take on a life of their own from the album versions. And I always kind of like that, you know what I mean? Yeah.
No, I think you did a great job. When I know for me particularly, when you turn the red light on, I get really nervous. So you're far more experienced, you're far talented than I ever was. Do you get a little nervous when you have you don't want to screw this up, and the whole band is sitting there, and you make a mistake, and they're like, really, we got to do it a third time?
That is, when you sort of, and it happens to everybody, because, we go to the pre-chorus quicker on that second verse, or whatever it is. So, when you're recording live as a band, as opposed to just trying to capture the drums, which is, as usually, or not usually, but often the drums are the focus. So you're playing the drum. We just have to get a solid drum take. It doesn't matter what I'm playing. It doesn't matter what he's singing. It doesn't matter what's going on. We're going to replace it all anyway. But in this instance, it's sort of like, if you screw it up, we're going back, or we're going to take another stab at it. I don't get nervous. I don't think that's really the right word for it. I think that it's sort of one of those weird things where you become, it's what we do, and you become sort of, you kind of take the the pressure off a little bit by just saying, look, it's like, if we're gonna have to go back and do it again. It was done on tape too, so it wasn't like it was just kind of like, oh, just cut that to this and this to that. It was like, no, we want to make sure we capture it. So I think that it's natural to be to get too much inside your head, and that's when it gets dangerous. I think you have to kind of just go with the flow, and there's a lot of eye contact and heads up, and because like I say, we're only playing this sometimes the third or fourth time we've ever played the song ever, and it's being captured, and you're kind of like, okay, well, and you're sort of like, you're not like really directing it, but they're sort of like visually directing like the next section and coming up and that kind of thing. So luckily Myles is singing with us, so oftentimes the vocal sort of directs things as well. So but yeah, no, it's, you're talking about a bunch of old seasoned, war dogs that just kind of like, here we go, we're going to go do our thing. Not to say it's like not exciting. In reality, that kind of like the red light fever of like, here we go, it's sort of like that kind of, you either get hyper focused or you completely fall apart. So
So that's a good thing for the seasoned professionals. I saw you at the Tropicana, I guess, I don't know, a month or so ago, and you played about 5 of the songs off the new album.
Yeah.
Great. Hard to pick those 5? Well, what was the rationale for picking those 5, I guess?
They would have been random. What you saw would have been super random because, we played every single song during the course of the tour. So you would have seen some version of that. And
yeah, I think it was, I think Myles said Fall Back to Earth was the first time you guys were ever playing that song at the Tropicana.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So stuff like River is Rising, like the singles we would have probably focused on keeping as a regular part of the set. And other things were kind of changed out, or as the run would happen, we'd be doing, a few songs and then they would get kind of changed out for another couple songs and go like that. Slash likes to play, it's funny because I always think about a band, say into their, their 4th or 5th albums are often like writing songs thinking, well, only 2 of these are ever going to get played live because we've got like a back catalog of music that needs to be focused on. Slash is just not precious that way. He's sort of like, no, we should play all these. He's excited about the fact that we're going to figure out a way to attempt all of these live. And some songs, I don't think for us necessarily, but a lot of the time there are songs that lend themselves better to or studio presentation than an actual live presentation. But we don't really work like that. Everything we do is sort of, it's like a rock band, how it's done, and it should be able to be presented live.
I think that's my favorite album that you guys have done so far. And it was great to hear those songs because you fall in love with them and you like them and you just want to hear them be played live and feel that energy.
Thank you.
So
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the right energy. I think that, we've been working towards this the whole time, like trying to get more and more live. So I guess that's sort of the charm.
And you're a great front man and you take on Dr. Alibi, which was fantastic. So
yeah. I mean, I appreciate that. Thank you. It's, that for whatever reason, they've always been like, well, because in that first time we got together 12 years ago, it was sort of like in support of his solo album that had multiple vocalists and like, hey, Myles is like, I can't sing in a Lemmy song and, whatever. And I go, and they just said, do you want to sing this? And I'm like, of course, I'd love to. I mean, Lemmy was alive back then, so it was weird to be singing it. And him often being there, if he wasn't on stage singing it, he would just be like, he happened to have been there and I'm singing this song in front of him. So, it was a real trip. And to me, it's just like, it's always an honor to be able to, if they ask me to do something, yeah, sure. If I can do it. Yeah.
No, that's a great song. I think it's got really a punk vibe. I think you nail it with the punk vibe and everybody's jumping up and down. It was great to watch.
Yeah, it's a big energy grabber. People always say that. It's kind of like, I have friends that go like, every time you come out, I get like swept up in some sort of like wave of like, activity. And I go, oh, well, I'd like to apologize, but it's a rock show. Expect that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I saw you in 2015, New York City, Terminal 5. I don't know if you remember. It was like the Escape from Thunderdome with the balconies, the rows of balcony, and the people were like all sitting on the balcony, and it was sweaty and it was hot. What a great show! I don't know if you remember that, but
I remember it well. Actually, I remember that show being. Eddie Trunk was there. I remember much about like most of our New York appearances are usually a big deal for me.
I just remember Slash was doing his solo, and the water was pouring off his elbow. It was just like somebody turned the faucet on him and he was just falling down his elbow. And I'm watching and I was like, oh my God, this is absolutely crazy. I've never seen anything like, and it was hot and it was May.
Yeah.
There was no air conditioning and it was a really crazy day.
You have to be careful up there because whenever he stands in one spot, he will drench that area. So it's like, if you're running around, there'll be puddles of sweat. So they often come out and just kind of, towel it up and just run off stage. Cause it's like, otherwise you're like, whoa, you slip all over the place.
But you guys like at the basketball game with those squeakies that are constantly mopping up the sweat from the basketball.
100%. Yeah.
But back then you played, you sang Welcome to the Jungle, right?
Oh, did I? Wow. Okay. Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah. That kind of stuff would get thrown at me too. Like, Myles kind of got to a point where he was kind of like, when we started doing stuff like, Dr. Alibi or whatnot, he kind of like appreciated a little break in the middle of the show to kind
Yeah.
of go regroup and come back out for, act 2, as it were. So it just became more and more like, and that kind of stuff was really kind of funny, because it's like, I think Slash felt a certain degree of pressure back then to kind of at least attempt some Guns N' Roses songs. We did quite a bit of Guns N' Roses songs back then. So
Yeah,
but then
Night Train, I think.
yeah, we did. Well, initially we did a bunch, because it was like there was no Guns N' Roses reunion anywhere in the conversation. But so a lot of stuff like that, and I think a certain degree of pressure of like, well, you have to do Jungle, and Myles used to sing it, but for whatever reason, Myles was like, why don't you just sing that? And I kind of like, okay. I mean, Myles is the funniest guy that, like, on the last run, we had Duff McKagan jumped up in Seattle.
I saw that on YouTube.
And he looked at me just like before we went on stage, he goes, can you do Night Train? And I go, I was like, literally like, as we're walking on stage, like, yeah, I think I can. I mean, it's been a long time, but yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of discussion during the day, like, and then you're going to sing it and you can look at the lyrics on your phone and figure out. I was like, I just literally went up there like, yeah, it's been a minute, but those Appetite songs are just up there. Somehow you just got to jar them loose.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's, it's just funny, because all that Appetite stuff, it was like, or generally most of whatever, it was kind of like, well, we've done Ace of Spades, we've done all kinds of crazy stuff. Just, it's sort of like, it's just stuff we know, or that I know. And hey, let's do Ace of Spades tonight. Okay. Or whatever. And then we just kind of make it happen.
It's like calling audibles. I heard Bruce Springsteen does that on stage. Literally, it turned, guys, we're gonna do it. And next thing you know, everybody's jamming into it. It's like, oh my God.
I know that kind of stuff is not necessarily what Slash does. Slash likes to be super prepared. So audibles that get called, but it happens all the time. From what I understand, the Guns N' Roses camp does it. I mean, when you're looking at a 3-hour show, I think that can be called all the time too.
Yeah.
Let's do My Michelle or whatever. Everybody has to kind of go, okay. Yeah. So you have to be really prepared.
I get it. You know what's great about you? You're not a one-dimensional bass player. You play guitar. You have your solo bands. You're doing your coffee. You're with Slash and Conspirators. Tell me about the importance of having that diversity across so many different things.
It's a weird thing, because I always like, whenever I'm talking to the whole DAMMIT merch thing that happened when I was a kid, they called me Todd DAMMIT, in the punk rock, everybody has a silly Sid Vicious and a Johnny Rotten, and Todd DAMMIT rhymed with God damn it, so everybody thought it was hilarious. And then it just sort of stuck with me into my adult life. It was something that was kind of abandoned, just because it was silly, and then it kind of found its way back to me. And then it sort of, just a t-shirt I was wearing that said "Damn It," I wore on a DVD back in 2011, turned into, where can I get that shirt? And then it was like, okay, well, now we have to make this shirt. And then we just sort of, turned into a whole other thing. And that spins into coffee, and it spins into all kinds of other things. And I always try to tell, my crew, my people, I'm always sort of like, look, I never wanted to be a t-shirt salesman or a coffee salesman or any of that stuff. I want to be a musician. So we are approached all the time. So stuff like a coffee company coming to you and actually wanting to license and you kind of go, well, of course, that sounds like fun. As a huge Kiss fan, you're kind of like, everything, anything you can imagine has the word Kiss on it. So it was kind of like, I mean, within reason, obviously, it's like, yeah, I go, yeah, sure. I mean, like, if it's, if it makes sense. But I mean, at the end of the day, just being a musician is sort of the goal. I think that people always say, you do so much, you got all these projects going, you get all this stuff. And I go, well, wouldn't you, if you could? I mean, like, we sort of live in a day and age where music is so strange, in that, back in the 70s, someone like Boston could put out a record and never even really tour, because all the money was just sort of made on the selling of records. It's not like that anymore. It's like everybody has to be out on the road, everybody has to be working, and I'm one of those people where there's 365 days in the year, and if you're not gonna, if this one project is not gonna fill up all 52 of those weeks, then I gotta, I want to kind of find other things to do. So every day I wake up and it's sort of like, what am I doing today? Oh, I got to read a chapter for an audiobook for my friend's book that's coming out. I go, well, see, that sounds interesting to me. Like stuff that's very different than something I would normally do. Or maybe a small acting thing in my friend's small project he's doing, or playing an acoustic show I have coming up. And then I play with Bruce Kulick. We're doing this thing in Nashville this weekend, doing Kiss songs from the non-makeup era. And, so that kind of stuff to me. And then Fitz and I from Slash's band are both Canadian. So we have this Canadian project called Toque, where we've always played lots of old Canadian classic songs. And most of these things are just fun things that sort of, they're like seeds that you plant and like, oh no, this is a tree now. You kind of expected it just to be something you did once in a while. And then it's sort of it's a good problem to have when they sort of become something that people are, hey, the coffee is doing, it's going to be in stores now. Is that okay? And I go, like, people in stores are going to go and see, like, okay, sure. And it's a weird thing, because like I said, all I really want to do is play music. And if everything, if everything was just sort of, like my whole week was just based around playing music, I'd be perfectly more than satisfied. But all these other little things that kind of happen, it's great, and like I said before, it's like the music industry is such that, you kind of have to diversify, if I may use words like that, which I always feel like it feels like the most non-musical thing to be talking about, diversification and blah, blah, blah. But I know that, in the adult world of doing what we do, you have to find other ways to make it all work.
And help pay the bills. And I get it. Yeah, it makes sense.
Keep the lights on.
Yeah. I guess the one item that you definitely could not put "damn it" on is a condom, right? Like Kiss.
Yeah. I guess these don't work, clearly.
Damn it.
I guess we'd find a way to make it work. I don't know, but no one's approached us about that just yet. But you never know.
You never know. It's true. Are you a coffee aficionado? Do you drink a lot of coffee? Like a lot of coffee?
I do drink a lot of coffee. I wouldn't consider myself an aficionado. The other guys in the Conspirators are the kind of guys, they have apps. We go to, like, we're in Venice and we got to go to this coffee shop, and I'm like, there's coffee in the lobby. It's like, why? I'm one of those guys. It's like, I do love good coffee, but I am also, like, perfectly happy to stop at a Flying J on the freeway to to wherever and go, hey, this is pretty good coffee. Like, I'm not, and that's kind of when it came down to the coffee we were doing here. I was sort of like, look, it's nice when it's really high end, beans and all that kind of stuff, and I really appreciate that. But I also think that there's, in the same way with rock and roll, in the same way with fashion, you have to kind of take into account that the average person is a regular person, and they're not like. And I understand the idea of, like, well, yeah, you make coffee for aficionados, and for whatever reason, the one we selected after trying a million different things has been very popular. So I'm, like, very happy for that, because it's you want it to be, and what people choose to do with those beans, they can make their lattes and all kinds of fun stuff with an American, all that kind of stuff. But for me, it was sort of I wanted to be able to live in, like, the lowest common denominator, and then whatever they want to do with it. So, but I do, I'm not going to lie, when those guys sort of, I'm just not as organized as them when they go, call up their app and there's a great place over here. And I always tag along, and I'm always like, damn, I'm glad we came here,
Yeah, that's so funny. No, that's cool. You also
it also gets expensive. Sorry, it's a kind
yeah.
I was like, how much are the I think I'm okay with the free coffee in the lobby for today anyway. Yeah.
The $8 cup of coffee is like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you also have your band, your solo band that you mentioned too. What's the status? You released a lot of singles. Are you going to be putting together one album? And will we ever see you tour the United States? I know you got some dates in Canada.
It's a very strange conversation, because Toque started off as we were doing, like, benefit shows in Canada, where a friend would be putting on raising money for breast cancer and stuff like that, and we just kind of went up there and landed on the idea of, like, what if we just played, like, old classic Canadian songs, because you're in Winnipeg and you think, like, that'd be really fun to do April Wine and Loverboy and, like, just kind of dig in.
Honeymoon Suite. I think I heard you do
Honeymoon Suite and Alda Nova and all this kind of stuff that, we're just kind of like, that'd be really fun. And it felt like, again, one of those challenges, as opposed to showing up and going like Van Halen, Led Zeppelin, because we've all jammed all those songs. And I came up in a cover scene. We all kind of came up in a cover scene where in Canada, the only way to play clubs was if you were playing, punk rock bars existed, like you could go play there. But I got immediately sort of taken by older guys and taken in, and like now we're going to learn Summer of '69 by Bryan Adams and Led Zeppelin songs and Van Halen songs, or whatever were kind of like popular or pseudo top 40 type songs, is where I kind of fell into it. And in many ways, I'm glad I did, because it sort of creates a real comfort on stage and a comfort in just playing music. You know what I mean?
They're great songs too.
And yeah, it teaches you a lot about songwriting, frankly. Like as you're playing and you go, okay, so intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, just sort of a weird sort of sense of like, okay, I understand what we're doing now. But so we started doing these. So the idea of just taking on the Canadian thing was just for fun. And Corey Churko came in, the guitar player for Shania Twain, who's like, I've known him since we were teenagers up in Canada. He was like the first guy I knew who went off to be like, oh, he's on Letterman now, and he's on SNL, and he's doing all this stuff. And I was like, wow. And then our drummer Shane has played with Michael Schenker, and Yngwie Malmsteen. He's played with some crazy people. So all Canadian guys that we all knew back in the day. And just by chance, we just started to kind of record some Canadian songs, Honeymoon Suite, Loverboy, just for fun, you know, like we were just kind of like mucking around. And then, like I said, it just started to get hired more and more. It's very interesting down here because we've been hired for a lot of private stuff where it's like some guy's, you know, party, or someone's getting married or whatever, but they're Canadian, and they're going to like cram these Canadian songs down their American friends' throats, where they kind of go, I know, working for the weekend, but what the hell is this? So that it creates an interesting conversation. We released one album of full covers. The second album was covers except for one original song, and since then we've sort of been more focusing on writing songs. So we released another single. We released a single of the Sheriff song, When I'm With You, and then we released another original song. So we just kind of like been focusing on that. COVID, of course, sort of threw everything into a bit of a tailspin. So now we're just starting to reboot it for the summer, July, up in Canada.
Are you gonna do a CD?
Yeah, we've done, well, that's the plan. Is we were thinking about just sort of kind of releasing singles and then eventually sort of compiling them into one compact disc.
That's great. That is awesome. And I do hope you come down to New Jersey. I'd love to see you. I do a lot of photography.
I would love that.
You know, come down and take some nice pictures of you guys.
I love Jersey. I've got a lot of friends out there. It'd be awesome.
They stuck me for I shot the show at the Tropicana, and they put me all the way back by the soundboard. So really far, you know.
That seems, what a weird, I mean, why not?
Well, they said it was COVID related. You didn't want to get too close to the band. Like, you know, it's like, I would have worn a mask if that was only 3 songs, but yeah, it is what it is.
There was so much paranoia on that thing because, you know, I mean, it was the first time we've ever had to do any run like that. And it was, you know, we'd get to Nashville and it's like, I can't see anybody. Like, I'd love to hang out and go do it. But we were like completely like stuck in our hotel rooms or whatever until, well, we kind of got out and, you know, follow the coffee app or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was sort of, but it was just very sort of like, if anybody gets COVID, we got to shut this whole goddamn thing down. So I was like,
there's a lot of people besides yourself, I guess. That would be selfish to think.
Yeah. You know, there's crew and there's, you know, bus drivers, drivers. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's important. Well, I want to thank you so much for your time. It was such a nice time to speak with you today. I was really looking forward. So thank you so much. And I'll put links to all of your websites and your coffee and things like that at the end of the interview. Okay.
That's so funny. They just sent us these little gold coffee beans because we sold so much coffee. Like, I'm like, wow, like a gold record or something. This is a little coffee bean on like you put it on a chain. I'm like, oh, I'm probably not going to wear it. We're going to probably display it somewhere, but it's like so funny. I'm like, it's so adorable.
Very cool. Very cool. Congratulations. Yeah. So thank you so much, Todd. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.